Well, hey, everybody, we have the Super Bowl that, well, not that I cared that much, but I was really looking forward to some new blood. Instead, we have the Detroit, no, just kidding. The San Francisco 49ers versus, how about that? The Kansas City Chiefs all over again. Bill, I take it you predicted this outcome?
Well, I was right about a couple of things. I thought that'd be a very close game. I didn't think the Lions would jump out to a big lead. I thought the Lions would get a bit of a lead and then get pulled back and then, make it close. But I thought they'd lose by about 3 points. They're a team that you can tell is getting there, but not quite ready. The things that stood out to me, one is that a lot of their receivers did not seem to be exactly ready for the ball to get to them when it did. So there was some timing stuff, and then though golf was mostly accurate, sometimes the ball placement was wrong shoulder, right? He wasn't missing guys wide, way up, this way, just 6-7 inches this way, 6-7 inches that way. But that takes away from run after catch, and they have great run after catch receivers. Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the best rack guys in the last 10 years, up there with Cooper Kupp, Debo, who we just saw as well, amongst the top run after catch guys. He's terrific at it. I think that they didn't get Laporta involved as much as I thought they would in the second half. I thought he'd see the ball more. And I thought they had some opportunities. Now, Goff is not exactly a runner, but the way he was being defended, there were chances for him to just pick up 5, 6, 7 just free yards. And I know it's not in his nature to just do that, but a couple of times he just could have taken off and made, instead of being at 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 13, they could have been 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, things that just by those pick up those free yards. Because as of now, the way he's being defended, people just ignore him as a running threat, which admittedly I understand. He's not exactly, sweet feet out there, but even some of the less athletic guys know that when the yards are being given to you, just go take them. Go take free yards.
Now, I have to say, I was also surprised the Lions jumped out to the lead that they did, but they really had a solid get a hat on a hat running game approach. It was almost the antithesis of the kind of approach we were talking about that the Ravens shockingly used, as opposed to what they should have done, which would be more akin to the Lions, right? Um, and but their defense had a mixture of fronts and coverages, and also just plain determination. We can't put the human element out of it at all.
Sure.
I was certain they would maintain that, but
No, I was not certain they would maintain that.
well, let's explore that. Why?
Because the 49ers are a better team. They're just a better team. And usually at some point, the better team comes back against the inferior team. That's been proven throughout the 104 years now of NFL history. That if you jump up on the better team, you have to keep on top of them, right? And the problem was that's why Coach Campbell kept going for it on 4th down, because he wanted to make sure he got touchdowns every time he could. I get the thinking. I'm a little different in that mindset. I keep thinking, let's get points every time down.
Yeah,
We prefer a touchdown, but points are points.
yeah, because it would have been by 6, and it would have changed the entire complexion of the game. Because not only would they have been down by 6 theoretically, the score may have even been more in their favor because of the fact that you're kicking off to the 49ers. Anything could happen, right?
Well, they eschewed 2 field goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you give them those 2 field goals, and yes, it's an entirely different game. So I understand the mindset, and you're saying to your offense, I trust you, but you're also saying to your defense, I don't trust you. When you keep going for it on 4th down. So I get it in theory, but in practice against a superior team, get points every time down. That's my mindset.
in our play for more efficient interaction, David Talks Buff says Dan Campbell with Brandon Staley type decisions. I really think he gifted all the momentum back to San Francisco with him not kicking that 35 yarder and 48 yarder.
Yeah. So the pressure stays on the other team more when you score. I mean, that's not exactly rocket science, but when you come away with a drive, you put together a drive, you come with 0 points. It does two things. Obviously, it takes away the points you would have had, but also, right, twice exactly. But also it says to the other team, hey, we're right back in this thing, right? If they have 6 more points, they probably win this game, right? We can't say for sure because 6 points is 6 points,
Right.
but I think it changes two things. I think it makes it so that it's harder to stick with the run game. The 49ers want to run the football, right? And they do it extremely well. In fact, here's what I'll say. One of my biggest surprises was that there weren't more big plays in the run game had. The Lions have at times been vulnerable to the run. They did a pretty good job, actually.
Mm-hmm.
They still need to add some talent in their secondary, but you could see their linebackers are playing better. They're not missing their run fits as much as they did earlier in the season.
Mm-hmm. Hey, so David says, shocking he made that decision, but not once, twice. Feel bad for Lions fans. Then he says, taking that 35 yarder, they made a 3 possession lead again.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he
Yep.
said, yep, crazy,
Yep. And that's the thing. Once again, I get it. The aggressiveness, the being afraid that they're going to score a lot of points in the second half. And they did, right?
They did.
But if you keep scoring points, even if it's 3 points, it keeps you there, right? They don't get that much separation from you if you keep scoring. Even if they're scoring touchdowns, you're scoring field goals, you have a lead. You don't need to score at the same rate. You just need to score enough, right? The old joke about I don't need to outrun the bear, I just need to outrun you.
Extremely well said. Now, some other talk lines about this contest as I visit Twitter are Brock Purdy. How do you assess his game?
Brock Purdy, if you were to stack up all the sort of similar quarterbacks, right? You've got Gardner Minshew, you've got Chase Keenum, you've got uh, Reagan Mayfield, and then Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, it's like when you watch that old illustration where you see like Cro-Magnon man, right? And you see you have like Homo Pitheces and then like Cro-Magnon man, and then you go up sort of like that. He's the greatest evolution. He's the best possible version of that quarterback, right? That is that Case Keenum, Gardner Minshew, Baker Mayfield. He's the best version of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He is not a great athlete, but he's a competitive athlete, like a good enough athlete. He can pick up yards when he needs to. His arm isn't a cannon, but it's strong enough. But the most important thing that he does.
Hold on a second. Mom, did you want to make a comment? She went, okay, she'll be back. Anyway.
The most important thing that he does is he does not drive the truck into a ditch. So we saw the one game when he did drive the truck into a ditch. They got blown out.
Yep.
But other than that game, he's been incredibly efficient. He has had one really terrible game the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
He's been somewhere between good and very good and occasionally great.
Now, how would you assess Jared Goff's play?
He's a guy that the one big knock on him, and it's still kind of a knock, is he doesn't always navigate the pocket super well. He doesn't always work well with a muddy pocket, right? Pressure definitely takes away from his accuracy. We all sort of hoot and holler and clap when we see like Mahomes and other guys, Josh Allen, right, where somebody's draped all over him and he slides a little bit and gets his arm free and completes a 12-yard pass with somebody all over him. That's not Jared Goff.
Mm-hmm.
That is not Jared Goff. He's not a guy that's going to take a hit or spin off a guy or have someone slide off him or throw a touchdown pass with a guy draped all over him. Not his game.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be kept clean. That is a bit of a limitation. And like I said before, when I spoke earlier, there's times when there's free yards, 5, 6, 7, 8 free yards. He just takes off and gets them. He doesn't do that. For whatever reason, he'll slide this way and slide that way and try to get the ball out of his hands in the passing game, which is what your job is as a quarterback, obviously. But if they're turning their back on you and running with receivers, just take the free yards sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, my thought about the 49ers is and how they played is I'm still chomping at the bit that the system that they play is not a Bill Walsh system. And a lot of their plays were, I have to say, like, for example, that tipped catch, that was good fortune. And if you take that and then the divisional playoff game, there were a lot of plays that happened due to, well, one could say divine intervention. I'm not convinced that they have played that statistical game where I'm comfortable with them, uh, even in the Super Bowl, right? Although because of the way it turns out, I'm not ready to bet against them at all.
Yeah,
But,
I still like the Chiefs a little bit better than I like the 49ers. And even when people were saying the 49ers were the best team in the league, I never bought into it quite.
yeah.
There are things that they certainly have. They have a lot of depth of talent in the front seven of their defense. So much talent. Fred Warner is maybe the best, one of the 2 or 3 best linebackers in the entire NFL.
Yeah.
They have a good, not star-studded, but good secondary. They have the best all-around running back in the league. Brock Purdy is a budding star, though he doesn't look like one, right? The way he plays isn't the most, high wire act. It's mostly keeping the ball in the fairway. But every once in a while, when you need him to make a wow play, he does it.
Now, if you had to pick the MVP of this game, who would it be?
The MVP of the game we just watched. I mean,
Yeah.
It's hard to pick someone other than Purdy, quite frankly,
Mm-hmm.
for two reasons.
Okay.
One, even when things were going very, very poorly, his demeanor never broke, never cracked. And, he's a young quarterback. He still is in his 26th, 27th, some of that. I think he's not quite the 30 starts, if memory serves me correctly. So he's a fairly young guy.
The 49ers were the favorite to win the Super Bowl before this contest.
Mm-hmm.
So odds on that by tomorrow, when the line comes out officially, although I expect it to be out right now, that will remain. But I'm surprised it's not the Chiefs, but it is the 49ers.
Right. Well, people have liked the 49ers, a lot this year, especially, the guys in the desert have liked the 49ers a lot this year. And there's things to like about them, like I said, a lot of things. I do wonder, I mean, here's the difference between the team they just played and the team they're going to play. If they go down 17 to the Chiefs, they're done. They can't go down 17 to the Chiefs. If they go down 14 to the Chiefs, they're probably done. So,
although you have to say, well, gee, they were down 21-7 to the Lions. So
yeah, well, they went. Yeah, I mean, but once it got to 24-10, you could see that they were going to reel the Lions back in. And I knew at some point, I didn't know if the Lions would be able to fight back, but I knew the Lions were going to at some point be even with them. And that's the real test of them as a team once they, the game had been even back up at 24.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with being a team that's built the way the Lions are built is your best playmakers are your running backs and Amon-Ra St. Brown, and then Sam Laporta. Right, those are your four best players on your offense, and all of them beat you or predicate beating you on one of two things. Now Gibbs is the fastest of the group, right? He's probably the fastest player. Well, he and Jameson Williams are two fast. Williams is actually the fastest, and then right up that's Gibbs. Those are two fastest players in the They only didn't use Jameson Williams that much.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously had the big play as officially a run of 72 yards, and then he had one other good play in the passing game. But they need to use that threat more often, because that will make teams play them differently if they know that you're going to take 4 to 6 shots per game deep. He's the only of all the players I named, and Gibbs is fast, but he's not used down the field, at least not yet, as a passing threat. So that's your only downfield passing threat. And he's not one of their best players yet, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown is quick, and he can occasionally beat somebody deep off a double move or things like that. But mostly they use him in the middle of the field, working the intermediate. Laporta is also a guy, because he's a tight end, who works that area of the field. Montgomery is a power back with good balance, but not really that explosive. He breaks tackles. He gets you good yards. He falls forward. Gibbs, like I said, and Williams are the two people that are a chance to give you an explosive play. Big play, 40, 50, 60, etc. They need to get Gibbs matched up on linebackers on wheel routes and things like that down the field more often. And they've got to take more shots deep to Jameson Williams. And once Jameson Williams and Gibbs are even more integrated in the offense, that'll open things up for the other guys who are mostly middle of the field, intermediate type guys.
Yeah, I thought you made a comment. Oh, before I go, hey, Mom, you got a comment about the game?
No. Do you have the bakery?
I'll check. I think I probably do, but I'll check. Yeah, yeah. But let me Mom, handle that later. Okay. So anyway, I think that a number of problems with golf and footwork have to do with, well, that's offense. And I think there's this habit of late, say about the last 12 years, where people want the quarterback to fix his footwork that the coach should be fixing. And that was very much evident in this contest. For example, if you want a better sideline pass, one to be completed against heavy rush, well, call a sprint out. Remember those sprint outs? They were neat. You don't see sprint outs are a beautiful thing. We saw the Chiefs run twice. Okay. I prefer them run them like 8 times a game, but that's me. Burying the pocket is a lost art. Working on the footwork where you stop to a point after you rolled is a lost art. Heck, throwing on the run, holding the ball here, and then throwing it short, ideally, is a lost art. And I think it goes to where a number of people have made this comment, which I agree with, that the passing game has really become sloppy. But done well, the passing game should be able to get you out of trouble within a very, very short amount of time. Now, the Chiefs have a better chance of that. So let's flip the script from the Super Bowl. Let's say the Chiefs found themselves down against the Niners. I think the Chiefs will stand a better chance of coming back against the Niners than the reverse.
Sure.
So, but the Niners are 2.5-point favorites. I would say take the 2.5 and take the Chiefs. I really would.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, whenever two teams are that closely matched, I just see who's the underdog and take the underdog. Just because that's where the value bet is when you've got, even if it's a little spread, it's a spread. These teams are just extremely evenly matched.
Go ahead. I
was going to say, the thing that concerns me, the Chiefs have had, obviously, like every team does this point in the season, but they've got some guys who are nicked up. they'll have some time to heal. That'll help. But they will get battered physically to some extent by the 49ers, who are a team that, just wants to push you around. And early in this game, they were getting pushed around, which I think surprised a lot of people. They had a lot of six-man fronts. And I think that you'll see the Chiefs use some of that. They jump into some six-man fronts sometimes anyway, but this, hopefully, they'll have some neat wrinkles off of it because Andy Reid always has neat wrinkles off of everything he does. So you might see those heavy run looks where, it's two tight ends, but one of the tight ends is an extra tackle. And then, somebody, leaks out, Mahomes rolls and then boom, turns back. It's a throwback screen to the other side, that kind of stuff. They do lots of fun stuff like that.
Now, taking a look at Twitter, we have an interesting little development here in terms of the number one trend in the entire Twitterverse, Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell. And keep in mind, folks, we have a lot of upset people. We have, I think, probably the greatest collective heartbreak in NFL history. Think about it. We've got the Ravens that haven't seen the Super Bowl in quite some time. The Lions that have not seen the Super Bowl in when?
Ever.
Yeah. Both literally on touchdown's door from changing those state of affairs. America would have exploded if it was the Ravens and the Lions. You know it. I know it. Everybody knows it. It didn't happen. The CBS people even got a shot of a little girl crying her eyes out at the Niners game. Do you see that? Oh, just a poor thing. So now, perhaps not surprisingly, Dan Campbell is the number one trend in the United States. Let's see what they're saying. Art Mirov says, the realest thing you'll hear a coach admit. Lions head coach Dan Campbell told his locker room that this might have been their only shot. Campbell obviously doesn't believe that, but he says it'll be twice as difficult next year. He says, you're not hiding from anyone anymore. Everyone will want a piece of you. He says his full answer is all the reality of the NFL. But Sports Hub says he brought the Lions back from the dead. And then Garrett Nelson just simply says, we were talking about kick the field goals. And Charlie Quinn says, respect him owning it. Got to respect that. What do you think about that comment, Bill?
Well, that's part of why I explained to you why Dan Campbell is a good fit for the situation he found himself. He completely instilled a player-centric, accountability-centric, tough-minded culture. And the Lions got much better because of it. I know you would have preferred, an X's and O's wizard or whatever. He's not any of that.
Right.
But he is a guy that guys play for. And, look at what Frank Ragnow did a week ago, playing through 3 injuries that normally would have, had a player sit. And every time he got hurt, he would take a play or 2 off and come right back out. That's partially because of the culture that Dan Campbell has instilled. So they definitely, like I said, need to add some talent at a couple of different positions. If they can find one more pass rusher to pair with Hutchinson, and of course James Houston is coming back from that ACL tear he had last year. But if they could add one more, if they could add one more really great corner, they have a really good nickel in Brian Branch that I like a great deal. They have one corner I really like, and one corner I'm a little on. And I like Kirby Joseph a lot, so I would add at least maybe 2 more players to the secondary, at least one more mismatched pass rusher who, demands attention. And then on offense, I would keep adding to the offensive line group, but they're close. They're very close. You can see how close they are.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, if I were them, I would install a brown formation and a blue formation from the past. Why? Because, one thing I'm impressed about with the Lions is their offensive line really gets off the ball quick, and they really dry block very well. If you use a Brown formation where the fullback is just 3.5 yards behind the quarterback, and then the halfback is on the weak side where bless you.
Ooh, yeah, he's got a cold.
Yeah, yeah. My mom says you really got a cold.
Oh yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, but that's great to, particularly if you're going up against defenses that have the linebackers way off the ball, for them to pick up a first down or pick up 3, 4, 5 yards at a clip. And I think that simple change would open up their running game for the pitchbacks and everything else that they do from the running game that tend to start deeper in the backfield. I think that's their missing element, and they can run play action off that and slants, short slants. They add those two elements to their overall repertoire, and I think they become lethal. I really do. Just little things like that. Just little things. But I think a lot of their work needs to be on defense in terms of varying their fronts. And, really, I think in the draft, working on developing a monster set of defensive tackles to go with their ends. Although I'm sure that their objective is going to be probably slightly different than that. They probably feel that some of their needs are more at the cornerback area. But what say you?
Well, the secondary has been a challenge for them all year, and they've had good days and bad days. And they gave up a couple of big plays, but for the most part, they actually played fairly well. But there's things you're not able to do. There's limitations on what you can do because you don't have those great individual coverage players. You're forced to do things that demand, that, well, one, that you get pressure, but also you can't just man up, right? You're forced to use some sort of zone almost all the time. And like I said, I think that if they're able to add at least one, really, really, truly talented, special coverage player in the, the deep part of their secondary, if they find another safety to go with Kirby Joseph, I could see that really helping as well. So, and one who's able to cover, in individual coverage as well as, maybe add some thump as a tackler. But as you said, if they get stouter on the interior, that would certainly help. But they need to find also that person to pair with Aiden Hutchinson. So you can't have all your attention focused on him. And James Houston, of course, should be closer to 100% next year.
Yeah. Now I got to stop and I got to give to Dan Campbell. 3-13-1 his first year, 9-8 his second year, 12-5 his third year, NFC Championship game, division title, won his division, the NFC Central. That's not bad. That's an obvious path, an obvious ascension. No question about it. So happy to be wrong about him. Happy to have been able to watch his ascent, and I can't wait to see what he does next year in NFC Central. That's going to be different in a way, although subtly different, not entirely different. I can't wait to see what the Vikings do. I can't wait to see what the Bears do with respect to Justin Fields. So I hope they keep him, as opposed to starting all over again when they got this guy right. We talked about that before. If the Bears do make that change, I don't see what they're going to achieve any success in the near term. And so the Lions are set up to arguably they could be picked as a repeat. Well, then again, there are the Green Bay Packers. Because the Green Bay Packers really showed us what they were capable of doing against the Cowboys. And so I have to say it's a toss-up. it could have easily went the other way, don't you think?
Well, once again, development and drafting, right? The Packers' offensive um, skill position group is the youngest in the NFL. They had, I think, only two members that at least that touched the football um, are more than 26 years of age.
Mm-hmm.
So that
Mm-hmm.
so they're extremely young. They're extremely young there. They've got to replace David Bakhtiari. That's going to be a hugely important thing. If they don't find a consistently good left tackle, that will slow down everything they're trying to get done. But they're very good at drafting. They're good at developing. They should be able to get it done.
So, hey, on that note, we are 30 minutes and 45 seconds, and I want to give you a, I'll give you a throw to break. I want to get this comment. Keith says that the Cowboys' problem is Jerry and Stephen Jones. What do you? I think that that's not exactly the problem. I think the Cowboys' problem is, look, say what you will, but the Cowboys had their best years when they were using computers to develop and form the databases for their game plans. That was way back in the Landry era, where they were coming up with offensive and defensive innovations. And now they are quite literally grasping at straws. They seem to make decisions on with the angels and devils on their shoulder. They need to really go back to the Cowboys' organizational roots and become more in love with analytics with respect to game plans and play design, and then of course, player drafting. Now, Keith says that Jerry Jones' ego might prevent that, but I think that Jerry's at the point where he's probably willing to consider that if somebody actually knew how to present that argument to him, or he would say, well, in his vernacular, hell, we tried everything else. Why not? Because they have tried everything else. But they haven't achieved the kinds of wins they want to. And they're all over the place. They're inconsistent. And when you don't have an approach that's based on data analysis, well, that's what you get. And then you also get the situation where you don't know why things are happening the way that they're happening. And so you wind up making changes maybe where you don't need to make them. One big problem the Cowboys have is they got away from something that was traditionally their own, even back to Jimmy Johnson. And that is the 4 down linemen that were at 6'4" and bigger. And if they weren't 6'4" and bigger, and maybe they were like 6'1" or 6'2", like Russell Maryland, then they were 300 plus pounds, and they could literally be road move things. Okay, you okay, Bill?
Well, so some of what you're saying is you're sort of, I don't think you realize you're agreeing, because some of the things the Cowboys got away from, they got away from because Jerry seized the reins as general manager and went away from those things.
Mm-hmm.
So you could put some of that at his feet.
Well, no, that's what. But see, I think I'm not. He owns the team, and I understand he's ahead. But what I'm saying is that I made the comment that I think he would be willing to consider such a approach if anybody understood how to present it to him. And I don't think he has people like. In fact, excuse me, he doesn't have people like that. All right, and I know I'm not going to go into the reason why. I know it's personal, but I know he doesn't. And I think you make the right presentation or a PowerPoint and show how it could be done. And I think he would say, well, yeah, let's try it this way because it hasn't worked for us. Nothing else has worked for us. You should be able to know or have a report for every single game about why certain things didn't work. And then that'll help you prepare for the next game. I mean, who started all that? Bill Belichick. In a sense, he did it better than Landry. Not that Landry didn't do it; Landry did it first. But Coach Landry wasn't blessed with the kind of telemetry we have today. So, and the Patriots were. And so you would say, okay, what happened with the Patriots? I think that what happened with the Patriots had more to do with culture and voice, or perhaps a needed adjustment in what people call the Patriot way, but much needed adjustment. But it doesn't mean that data analysis are not valuable. And my contention is that the Cowboys don't do it at all with respect to game planning and play development. That's all I'm saying. Thoughts?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. And my hope is that at some point, Will McClay is entrusted with fully implementing what he would like to do in terms of talent acquisition. I think that will help.
Yeah.
But they have an actual, mental, not so much physical, but I'd say mental toughness issue. They're not a mentally tough football team. And I've said this about them for years, and I've been right for years. And when I said to everybody who would listen, they're not going to win the Super Bowl, they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, I knew why. Because I knew they would fold under pressure.
That's what I'm saying. You fall under pressure. That sort of thing happens when, like, for example, when you were off camera, I made a comment that defensively, they don't have the same kind of linemen that they're traditionally drafting. They're light, they're small. They're more like NASCAR all the time instead of sometime. And I use the term NASCAR because Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator, who's a great guy, by the way, had his NASCAR package when he was with, right.
Everybody
Everybody
has some version of that, right? Some people call it
dudes, right. But I mean, the Niners don't have. They have something like that, but even their version of it is heavier, and it's that the traditional 4-down lineman rush is still a value, and if the Cowboys are going to have any success, they need to get away from the Fred Schmermer style of defensive front where you have the two defensive tackles and your ends are standing up and your ends are getting crushed. Because that's what's going on with the Cowboys. They need to go back to an old-fashioned down lineman position or something like that. Bill, we got to have you take care of your voice. You have the last word here. Take us out.
What will eventually come to pass in this upcoming Super Bowl? You're going to see who's going to be the most efficient of the two quarterbacks. You're going to see which one of those offensive and defensive lines is able to establish that they are going to be the more dominant, like they're going to physically, dominate more, because both these teams would like to own that line of scrimmage. People forget, Andy Reid is an old offensive lineman, a guard. And I think yards per carry will matter in that game. And like in every other game we've ever seen, who avoids the big mistake? Who avoids giving up that strip sack, that punch out near the goal line? The team and the Chiefs have had a clean run. If the Chiefs don't turn the ball over, they win.
Now, I'm curious to know, real quick, who comes out of the advantage here from a Raider fan perspective? Here's why I said that, because, look, the 49ers are playing in the Raiders Stadium for the Super Bowl, but so are the Chiefs. I mean, that is the ultimate, you got to be kidding me, man. You got to be kidding me, man. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bill?
Well, I mean, the old joke is you root for a salmonella outbreak? Is that what happened in that situation?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Bill, get some rest.
That's what I'm about to do.
All right, man. My mom says you need what?
Some antibiotics.
My mom says you need antibiotics.
Well, I mean, that's like shooting a cannon at a gnat. It's just a cold.
Okay.
Well, right through here with these viruses going around, I wouldn't take a chance on it.
She's right.
Yeah, but the problem is if you take antibiotics when you haven't been prescribed taking antibiotics, you create the antibiotic-resistant superbugs that we're now dealing with.
Well, no, I meant for you to see a doctor and get some, sweetheart.
You do sound bad.
Oh, yeah, I know. But since I've been talking on this show.
Yeah.
Well, as long as your resistance are up, you're okay.
Yeah. Well, folks, that ends this stream. Bill, stick around in the background.